Welcome to another episode of All Things Entrepreneur, where we shine the light on the blind side of entrepreneurship. It's your boy, Errol J. Allen.
And I am your co-host, Jessica Myers. How you feeling today?
I'm blessed and highly favored. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm here. I'm excited.
Awesome. But you know who else is feeling blessed and highly favored? The person who's been in the business, done seen some things. And I said a business, I mean specifically like in the real estate realm. He's done seen it all, been at it for a couple decades. You name it, short-term rentals, Section 8, creative finance and fix and flips, licensed GC, like the whole gambit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, without further ado, let's bring up Mr. Sal Prewitt. How you doing today?
Man, it's your boy, Neighborhood Sal. I'm doing good, feeling good. Yes, I am blessed. And just here to chop it up with you guys.
Wealth in the neighborhood.
Win.
When you were growing up, in what ways did you just see and define wealth in your neighborhood?
Honestly, we gonna keep it 100. Like, wealth was the dope dealers that was on the same block as me. Like, they had their cars, they had their rims on their cars, they had the jewelry, and that's all I was exposed to as a youth. You know what I'm saying? So that was the definition of wealth for me.
That's some entrepreneurship, though. I mean, you saw entrepreneurship, somebody who got up, hustled, had a system going, right? Mm-hmm. Is that what you learned? Did you learn? I get, the result or the product may have been off, but did you learn some of the systems that you employ now today through?
Absolutely. That's where I got my hustle from. I watched, I seen, and I also experienced like the grind. Like, it's all from day to night, you know what I'm saying? But back then you had to hustle to survive, So, I mean, that's all I seen. That's all I knew. That's all I was exposed to. But I was a person who always had an entrepreneur mindset, but I was never exposed to entrepreneurship outside of, the street life.
So where are we now? So cool. That's where we grew up, and that laid the fundamentals. Mm-hmm. But where are we now?
I mean, right now we're thriving. We're running successful businesses. Still got that hustle, that grind, that dog in me. But, everything is legal, everything's legit. But we're doing big things. So they call me Neighborhood Sal because, that's where I grew up at. That's where I'm from. But then, we flipped the game. Then we came back into the neighborhood. Now we're rebuilding our neighborhood.
Wow. Do you have a book? Because I was like, it should be a book about the transition of.
Well, we're working on this in the works.
Yeah.
I have a little bit. I have a free ebook. Anybody can go to my page. My Instagram, Neighborhood Sal. Just comment ebook, and you'll get an ebook. I got a free ebook. It just tells you a little bit. It's just a glimpse of my story of how, it's very.
You said a glimpse of your story. Give us a glimpse of the story.
So basically, what I'm doing is just teaching people and telling people how to get into real estate, right? And right now, my main focus is Section 8, but I started off as a recipient of Section 8.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? At 19 years old, my girl, she was pregnant. I just graduated high school, was going to college, right? Well, I started in college one semester, and then my girl got pregnant, and then my mom's was like, you can't stay here, so we had to get out and find our own way, right? So a friend of mine, he had a Section 8 voucher, right? But him and his girl, and we all in high school, like just graduating high school, him and his girl, they was on, with Section 8, you're on a waiting list. So they signed up for the program and everything. But in that time of waiting, they already found a property, right? So he was like, you know what, we got this voucher.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? You got this voucher, so, if y'all need somewhere to stay, you just pay me and you can live up under our name, right?
Yeah.
So we did that, and
House hacking.
Yeah, all the way back then.
Didn't know what you were doing.
Didn't know what I was doing. It was kind of illegal back then too, to be quite honest. But I said, you got to survive, right? So after a year, when their lease was up, it was like, you know what? We about to use our Section 8. So it's like, we got to find somewhere to stay. But then it's like me, my girl, my daughter, she was just born 9 months old. And it was like, we got to pack up. We have to pack up, right? So we packed up our U-Haul with nowhere to go. My 9-month-old at the time, probably 20 years old at the time. And I went back to my mom's. I have 3 brothers, right? My mom, she moved out of town. She still had the house back in my old neighborhood, back in the hood and everything. So we had to go back to the hood. U-Haul packed up, nowhere to go, went to my mom's house. That's the only sense of stability, right? My brother's like, man, nah, where you going? What you doing? Like, you know, like you can't come here. That's what he pretty much told me, you know. So it's like, damn. But next door, it was like the house next door. A guy had a for rent sign out, right? So what we did was I called the guy. House was for rent. Talked to him. He came and met me right then and there, and we pretty much negotiated a deal. I had the money. I had the cash and everything. Just didn't have any experience and didn't know anything. But he was a private landlord. So once we communicated, and he allowed me to rent the property, gave him the deposit, gave him the first month's rent, everything. But this guy was a landlord who owned a lot of property in the area. So from me renting to him, he would come pick up the rent every month. You know, he was an older guy, didn't really dress flashy. He wasn't like the homeboys in the hood that had the jewelry and the flash cars and things of that nature, but he owned assets. And those assets were producing income, right? So as I continued to talk to him, he kind of gave me a lot of information and insight into real estate.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And so that was my first experience. Encounter. Yeah, first experience of somebody doing something legally.
Yeah.
Up until then, like, I was still a hustler, I was still an entrepreneur, but it was on the wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah.
But once he exposed me to the real estate game and everything, and like I said, I was around 20 years old, he exposed me to the real estate game, and then I started looking for properties. And then a lady came to me, she bought a house from a tax auction, right? And she bought the house and she sold it to me for like $2,000. So this is 6 months into renting my first house, right? So after that, you know, I bought the property from her, and in that experience, like, the house was like trash. We had to do everything from the foundation all the way up to the roof. Mm-hmm. New wiring.
From the rooter to the tutor.
Yeah, new wiring, new plumbing, new sheetrock, new foundation, everything. And that experience kind of taught me the general contracting side of things, the construction side of things. So when we bought the property, we went into it, you know, and like at that time I was still kind of dabbling in the streets, so I knew everybody in the hood. You know, it's a lot of like good skilled workers in the hood. You know, they just have their problems, right? But they're really good at what they did. So I would just hire a lot of cats in the neighborhood. They went in, fixed these properties up, and you know, from there I was just sitting on site, just pretty much learning everything. Now fast forward from that, I learned how to find properties. I learned how to fix them up from watching them. So I went and got my GC license because, you know, instead of hiring a GC, getting taxed, I already got the game. Mm-hmm. So why not do it myself?
Yeah.
You know?
Get your license.
Yep.
And that's one thing I really want to harp in on, because you're also a licensed real estate agent, right?
Yeah, licensed realtor as well.
I'll see you the full deal.
Yeah, full package deal. So now in terms of being a licensed realtor and a licensed GC, I would presume probably the harder one of the two to get was the GC license. But which has been the more beneficial one today?
Man, I mean, they're both equally beneficial because, say, for instance, as a licensed realtor, I wasn't getting my license to be a realtor for other buyers or to list it for other investors or sellers. My whole mindset was to be the investor, right? So instead of having to go to a realtor, you know what I'm saying, I would get the license myself. Now I have access to the MLS and have access to insight information that the average investor didn't have access to, right? Now, as a licensed general contractor, I mean, that's beneficial as well, because now instead of having to hire a GC or have to pay somebody to pull certain permits and things of that nature, I'm able to do all of that myself. So back then, this was when I was young, though. You know, I was young, I was fiery. I had that hustle, that grind, like, and I had a certain type of mindset to where, you know what I'm saying, I wanted to keep it all to myself. You know what I'm saying? Instead of have to pay this person this, pay a realtor a certain commission. But that was young, and that was a certain type of, that was a limited mindset. You know what I'm saying? A scarce mindset. Now, as I understand money, I also understand, like, you don't keep money out to yourself. You're supposed to let that, you know, you're supposed to let
it circulate, let it flow. It's called currency for a reason.
Right. It's supposed to have a current, it's supposed to have a flow. But back then, I was keeping it all to myself, and I was thinking that, like, you know what I'm saying, like, you know, I'm just keeping all the money to myself, like, I'm getting rich like this, but really, I was just, you know what I'm saying, in a certain.
There's so many parallels to nature that I find in money, because when you look at water, like, it's a beautiful lake here that I like to go run around, but when it's sitting still, it doesn't look so pretty. Like, if you get water in a fish tank and you don't do nothing to it, it get moldy, it get ugly, it get Exactly. But then when you keep it flowing and in a current, that's when you really get the beauty of nature.
Exactly.
And that's where I like to think, like you said, when you said money, that's what I think about. That's what I envision, like the currency and how to keep it flowing. Because that's how now when you get to wealth in the neighborhood, that's how your impact starts flowing to other people. And now you're hiring people. Now you're bringing, because that's one of the things I didn't think about getting into entrepreneurship. I thought solopreneur, getting your idea, but the people and the families you get to impact. What has that been like, especially knowing how impacted you were growing up, and now you get to be that same person to someone else that's growing up?
And, that's the main focus now, is the impact that we can make in our communities. Like from the impact to finding dilapidated properties, to fixing them up and providing housing for some people who couldn't afford it before, because what they're doing, they're going into our urban areas and they're gentrifying these areas and they're making them unaffordable for people that they grew up in there, whether their mothers and their grandmothers grew up in these areas. So what we want to do is we go back into those urban areas and we try to impact the people first with housing, and then we impact them with the information, because now as currency flows, so does information. So you have to be exposed for a long time. I was stuck inside this bubble, and being inside this bubble, I was shielded from the information, and everything inside of this bubble is the wrong information. It's the information that keeps us trapped inside this bubble. But once I got outside that bubble, I got exposed, and I started seeing, like, you know what? Everything that I was taught, everything that I was learned was the wrong way. So then I started learning how society really works. Right, so now what I do is I take that information, I want to bring it back into my communities, and give people that information to impact their lives. You impact their income, you impact their living situations. So that's the goal. So that's what wealth in the neighborhood is all about. Like, we build a foundation, and then that foundation is information and knowledge, but the pillars are, entrepreneurship. The pillars are investing, and, so those are some of the pillars in wealth in the neighborhood.
So one thing for me that I see it all the time on your Instagram, you're always posting rehabs that you're working on. But the crazy thing is, you have rehabs going on in multiple states. I'm like, first of all, because I rehab properties myself, and I already get gray hairs just taking care of stuff that's down the street. How or what team players, systems, processes do you have in place to have these projects still go forward and still be able to travel place to place, attend this event, and knowing your stuff is still moving forward?
See, that's the game. You said the key word. It's the systems and the processes. So first, you got to develop the system. So, like, systems don't come overnight. Like I said, I've been in the game for damn near, it's going on close to 20 years, and I was in the field actually doing these things. So from that, I learned how to do it. And then I learned how to systemize it, and then I learned how to delegate and put peoples in place of those systems. So that's kind of how I do it. And once you get the game down, you just replicate it and duplicate it. You can go to multiple cities and do the same thing, but you just got to be able, first you get the system, and then you just got to be able to put the people in place to operate those systems.
So let's get granular on that. So let's say you're entering a new market. How are you going to, because like Atlanta. So you got stuff in Kansas, right? Kansas was your first market, right? When you made the transition to coming into the Atlanta market, how did that go? What was the first key people that you had in place so you could start doing rehabs out here?
I mean, the first thing you do, and this is what I teach people, the first thing you do, you got to be able to find the properties. So what did I do to find properties? I started going to local meetups, and I started connecting with wholesalers. The wholesalers are the ones who was bringing me properties. Now, they're going to put their tax on it, but it don't matter, though, because you're making money, they're making money supposed to circulate, right? So first thing I did was find wholesalers to find me the properties. And then once we start finding properties, I already had the financing in place, things of that nature. That's another thing that I teach people, how to get the financing, how to get in position to get the financing. And then after that, it's fixing the properties up. Now, that's the hard part.
Yeah, that's
because dealing with contractors and people in Atlanta, it's a little bit different here, as far as finding, because there's so much demand here. So, like, with the contract, I would find contractors, but he probably got 10 other projects going on, right?
And he do 7 of them well, and then you become the 11th.
You know what I'm saying? He'll come and start off good, and then he'll disappear for a second, right? So, but I did find some really good guys, because I have a system of finding contractors. What is that system? You got to kind of go where they're at, Where do you find contractors? One of them is going to the local hardware stores, Home Depot, Lowe's. You kind of check that out. Also running through neighborhoods where there's a lot of construction activity going on. So we go to those, and, I pull up the job sites, Who's the foreman? Who's the head man? Like, can I talk to them? Like, listen, I'm a local real estate investor. I'm doing these many deals. Like, what you got going on? Let me see your work. Things of that nature. Build those relationships.
Yeah.
Right. So everything is about building relationships as well. But also, you got to have the knowledge. You got to have the experience. So, and if you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the experience, get with somebody that does have the knowledge and the experience. So after finding, people that can source me deals, after finding people who can fix those deals up, I already have people in place to finance it. What else you need?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So twofold question. Question one, when it comes to your GC license, is that across the U.S. or is that just like one state?
Man, I wish, man. When I first came down here, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna do the reciprocal agreement with Georgia and try to get my license down here as well. And they didn't do it. Like, they didn't have a reciprocal agreement with Missouri because my license is in Kansas and then also have it in Missouri. But they didn't have the agreement, so I could not. So I had to go through the whole process again of getting my GC license here.
And what does that process entail?
I mean, honestly though, and people think it's a lot hard. Now this is some sauce for your people though, because they think it's so hard to get your general contractor's license, your builder's license, and things of that nature. But honestly, it's all about just taking the test, passing the test, and that's it. It's that simple.
Well, you got to have experience and somebody has to vouch for you. So it's a couple other nuances.
No, that's what people think.
Oh, I thought you had to have somebody to at least vouch and sign off.
Nope. They didn't have to have none.
Is it because you had previous experience and you were transferring?
I mean, this is your experience. They're gonna ask you how much experience you have on the form when you're doing the application.
Gotcha. We ain't gotta talk about it. Gotcha.
I'm giving people the real deal.
I hear you.
Well, yeah. But they're gonna ask you experience. So yes, I did have experience. Yes, I did have 5 years experience. I mean, like, you're not gonna even be able to pass the test if you don't have any experience, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
But people think you have to be like a journeyman, like some specialty trades, like, electricians and things of that nature. You do have like journeyman experience and be up under somebody for a certain amount of hours and things of that nature. But as a general contractor, especially in my state now, as far as state to state, every state, every municipality have their own different laws and things of that nature. But in my state, you don't have to have that.
Gotcha.
You feel me?
Because I like, speaking of state to state, how is the NAR settlement impacted your business and what you have going on, and how do you feel about it from being a hustler?
I actually want to hold on to that after you answer.
As for me, it really doesn't affect me because, like, being an OG in the game, we already know that the commission, whether it's the buyer's agent commission, everything is all negotiable. So
it's always been up for grabs.
It's always been negotiable though. Like as a listing agent, they just make it common to do 6%. Most times, since I'm a licensed realtor, I would still, after I got to a certain level, like, I wouldn't list my own properties. I would use realtors to do it. But now I'm negotiating. Instead of paying you 3%, like, can you do it for 1.5%? So everything is negotiable. So now in today's time, say for instance, if a seller is selling their property and they don't want to buy and they don't want to pay the buyer's agent's commission, I guarantee you that property is going to sit on the market, because me as a buyer's agent, I'm not even going to bring my buyer to show your property, So So it's more of a way of incentivization. Like, okay, we'll keep it with the 6%. And then the people who want to be greedy, it's like, okay, now your properties just may sit longer. It's going to sit longer. So that's my take on, that's what I'm projecting is going to happen.
Because I feel like that was to slow down, and what I've been hearing from the industry is that slowed down a lot of online, like OfferPad and Zillow, that are hopping into the industry and not really doing much. They're still getting that standard 6% just because. And I think it was to stop them. But then it's like, everybody else still negotiate, carry on. Right. But, it's slowing down other larger entities from just being lazy and not doing anything. Like, let's just get the money and the commission, but not really doing the work that other agents are traditionally out there doing.
Exactly.
So what I've been, because I'm in, we're all in real estate. I've been in a lot of real estate chats and stuff, and I'm hearing people cry and woe is me. And I'm like, the thing still stands. You will always get paid the proportion to the value you bring to the transaction.
Exactly.
See, because I have real estate agents for my investment homes that I list for like a hotel strategy and my retail homes, and they bring me enough value in the deal. Not just I'm gonna just sign in, listen, you're good to go. They do other stuff. Like my listing agent, she gets the full 3% and stages the home, and the staging cost is covered by her and the 3%.
Oh
Wow.
These are value.
That's real good. I ain't know no agent covered the staging costs.
But these are value propositions. I mean, and it ain't like now everyone's gonna be like, I get a staging now.
Hey, get your agent's name down in the description.
But see, but this is a value proposition that offers, and I'm allowed to say, you know what? You're saving me an expense. I will definitely pay you the full 3% because you're offering me some value that now I don't have to find my own stager.
But let me ask you this then. I'm about to turn the tables. I want to just ask a question. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, ask the question. Ask
now, as you as an investor, now you paying your listing agent 3%. Now, are you going to pay 3% to the buyer agent as well?
That's a conversation for another day. That's a conversation for another day. Listen, you get paid proportion to the value you bring to the transaction. So the value you bring, again, I understand you're bringing the person who's closed the deal and all that, but is it matching the value that my selling agent, listing agent's doing? We don't know.
Yeah.
Some will say yes.
Like a hard no.
Some will say yes. Some will say no. I don't know.
Like you said, compared to the value that you bring, because I have some agents that are really sharp and they bring, I'm like, you 4% if you need, like, you know.
All my agents, there's no problem. They charge what they charge because of the value they bring to the transaction. And it's never been like, oh, can we just do this for this one? All my agents leave a value on my, at least for my roster.
You know what? Honestly, in my experience, because before I started buying and hold, I used to flip a lot of properties. Like, all of my houses sold themselves though. Yeah. Like it didn't matter who listed it. As soon as we put in, it has something to do. And I thought back in it was like had something to do with, especially when I was kind of 24, 50, when I was kind of new. I thought it had something to do with me, but it was more about the market. Like the market's been hot, and if you put good product on the market, there's a high demand for people trying to buy these properties. So 9 times out of 10, in my experience, like the house sold itself.
Okay. Now you talking about you got started in 2006, and you did very well. But then 2008, 2009 came looming.
Let me tell you, I did well for a year.
How did that transition and pivot and rebound go to keep you in the market? Because a lot of people lost their shirts.
Yeah, a lot of people. And a lot of people, when I first got into the game, who was advising me and telling me to do this and do that and going real hard, like all of them lost their shirts. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, like just me and my background, like being resilient and, never wanting to fail. Like I couldn't and I had just started like in 2006 and 2007 and then 2008 hit. And I probably had got up to like 10 properties. And back then what was going on and what they were, and I was just learning from people in the industry. They were buying the properties, they was fixing them up and they was pulling the equity out of them. So they was doing the refis because back then anybody with a post could get a refinance. And I'm just learning the game, I'm new to it. But when everything fell out, mostly all the guys, and I was like under guys who was like doing 50, 60 properties in a year, right? And like they let all of their properties go, but I don't know, like I couldn't do it though. So that's how I got into actually renting it out, and that's how I really got into Section 8.
So you ducked down. I'm interested to know, like they handle deals on that volume, why they didn't think to do that same strategy.
I mean, I think about it as, it's too much. I mean, it's kind of like they got the money, they grabbed the money and they rent and just, got out of it. And for me, to me, when I sit back and think on it, like one night it's actually kind of smart though, whether they did bankruptcy or whatever, they got all the money and they just let everything go. 5 years later, your credit back good. Back 5 years later, you're back in the game. But, somebody like me is like, nah, I'm not going that route. Like, I'm going to keep these properties and I'm going to figure out a way to cash flow them. And we figured it out and we kept growing and we kept going. And now the market kind of fell, but now we're getting properties so cheap.
Oh, wow.
And now we have a strategy of what to do with them. Yeah. Now we can't pull any equity out of them. We can't sell them, but we can cash flow them. So that's kind of how I started building my portfolio up as well. Man, my market back then, like properties, we were getting them for like $12,000, $15,000, $10,000. And as the market continued to get worse, like they just kept getting cheaper and cheaper because everything was sitting on the market. So only people who was buying these properties were people who can buy them with cash because banks wasn't funding them or financing them. So that's kind of how I built my portfolio up over the years. And then also how I transitioned, because I have experience on working on these properties. I started doing contracting work. like for local CDCs, like community development corporations, where they get so much money for the government and they go out in the inner city and they help people fix up them houses. So I was doing contracting work for that. Also, and this was a big pivot for me as well, was when a big pivot for me as well was when, so now with the foreclosures and everything, like that was a high demand. So I started providing services to the asset managers, to the banks who was owning all of these foreclosed properties, because these properties were being foreclosed on, they was just sitting on them, they wasn't selling. So I started providing property preservation services as well.
Smart. You know, like it's like you know, like we talked about what you learned from the beginning to help now. You learned early on the power of the pivot. Like when everyone's going left, you go right.
Yeah, you definitely got to go right. So even when I first got my real estate license, I was doing something. First got to really like trying to switch up. I'm going to these real estate meetings, dressing like a bozo, like suit tie, shit like that. They trying to, you got to be a salesman. You got to do this. You got to reach out to 1,000 leads a day and stuff like that. And I wasn't feeling comfortable. So I said, you know what? I switched. I pivoted. Instead of being an agent to really sell properties, I started doing BPOs. That was when I first got my real estate.
What's BPOs?
It's broker price opinion. So as an agent, instead of a bank hiring an appraiser and paying them, back then it was like $350, they would pay a real estate agent for a broker's price opinion. It's like a valuation on the property, and they would pay us a discounted rate at like $75. But I learned the game of volume too. So now, from that, my first year as an agent, you know, I learned, I made close to 6 figures. Right?
That's smart.
Like 70, 80. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of grind. And a lot of agents was like, I would never do that much work. I would never do this. And then when the market crashed and then they wasn't selling properties.
Can we do that much work?
That's where they went to.
Can we give a broker? I'll give my opinion.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, but you know, we always learned how to survive, man. And you know, we follow the money. We don't chase the money. We follow the money. So when the money started going in one direction, you got to be able to pivot. You know, because like I said, you always learn how. It's the survival instinct.
But even when you talk about nature, going back to the water analogy, when you move water, it shifts. Water matter is neither created nor destroyed. It just shifts. So like you said, no matter what the economy is or looks like, opportunities and where the money is flowing is just shifting. You just have to, like you said, follow the money. Don't think about the economic situations means that nobody's making money, because even in 2008 there were a lot of people who won, i.e. yourself. And that's where you expanded and scaled your portfolio to the magnitude where a lot of people were running. So don't always look at it like, oh, the market's bad, let me get out. Because you always say, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. And that's ultimately what you did. You bought the real estate and you allowed the cash flow over time to give you, or cash flow to give you that time.
It gave me time, and then time also gave me appreciation, and now those properties appreciated damn near, you know, tenfold, you know, and they still cash flowing. And it's something, you keep saying something about water. It's a book. Every time you say this, it's by Bruce Lee.
Oh, I thought it was gonna be Alchemist.
Oh, the Alchemist. I read the Alchemist too. I really love it.
We can have a discussion later on. We can have a discussion. I'm so excited. Okay. But, back to the water.
Bruce Lee got a book called Be Water, My Friend. And so it's out, and it's talking about going with the flow of the water. And a lot of times what we do, we go against it. You know, and that's how we make our lives a lot harder.
But even when you look at the rocks are going against it, right? And it causes the water to back up and then go around it. So nature's still teaching lessons. Exactly. Oh, I can't wait to get into that conversation. We can go with your question, because we're going to talk about the Alchemist.
We get a little bit deeper.
You got under the Alchemist talk. Here we go. So let's talk about partnerships, because right now you're currently like, and this is a unique thing. You're not at 100 doors, like multifamily doors, 100 single family properties. That's a lot. It's a lot of systems, a lot of process, a lot of team. So it's funny how we met. This is going to segue into the question, because we met at a real estate networking event, right?
Exactly.
And at the time, he was looking for somebody to help manage some of his Atlanta properties out here. So we formed a partnership and, you know, went the whole 9 for doing that. When it comes to hiring and firing people, at what point do you say, whether it be a contractor or a manager, not to throw shit, you know, the manager, but, you know, at what point you say, yo, it's time to cut the axe and, you know, keep it moving when it comes to your processes?
Man, you know, honestly, and I'm just really sitting back and just thinking about how many people I had to fire, and it's been very few, honestly. I kind of, like, I really haven't had to fire anybody. Like, even with the manager here, it was, and the cleaner here, it was like, the services wasn't up to par. But like me, like I have a certain thing, and it's outside of business. It's like when I build a relationship with you, it takes me time to build a relationship with you. So you got to, for me to even build a certain relationship, and it's a business relationship, you got to have certain type of values. And I'm really good at reading people and observing and things of that nature. And once I see these and I get comfortable with it, like even like my contractors and the people who work for me, whether in the property management, my contractors, and now I'm building out new teams. Like they've been working with me for over 10 years, you know? Like and it's like a certain level of loyalty. It's like you treat people right, you treat people good, and you know how to manage people. And you also taking care of their livelihoods.
Yeah.
You know, you treat them right financially though. A lot of times people so focused on stretching the dollar and they don't treat their help. Like my advice I would tell people is like you just said, pay a person what they're worth, right? Pay them what they're worth and treat them good, and they'll be loyal to you.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my advice on that. But I never really had to cut people loose. So I really don't have a system for that, you know.
Okay.
And also I'm really cautious on who I work with too.
Yeah.
It
starts either your worst deal or your best deal is made at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are some like telltale red flags that you look for when it comes to shifting who you're gonna bring into your ecosystem?
Like seeing if a person is more focused on the money versus the money that they can make versus on providing a really good service. You know, seeing if they're focused more on, you know, making like the organization, bringing a service and a talent to the organization that's going to, you know, better the organization, or is it just a person who's just focused on themselves? That's the first thing I kind of look out for. If it's just all about you, I kind of look for those. And if I see those type of signs and flags, you know, we probably look elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If I see how you take care of your space, that's what you're gonna do on my team.
Exactly. And then it's like conversation is good. Like if you have a conversation with a person, they'll tell you who they are. You know, like they'll tell you who they are. Just having a conversation.
Awesome. So you do all forms of rental. Like, what is your favorite form of rental to date?
Honestly, to my favorite, all of them bring me headaches sometimes. Whether it's Airbnb, whether it's Section 8, whether it's the room rentals, whether it's market rate. But I love Section 8 though. Like a lot of people don't like Section 8, but I love it though, man. Like the rent is guaranteed. The rent is very competitive. And like I said, since a lot of people don't like steer away from Section 8, the competition is not as much competition. And then I've been working with tenants, it's mostly tenants from where I'm from, so I know how to work with my people though. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times these big corporations are people outside of our community and our neighborhoods that buy properties in our neighborhoods because they know the value of it. And then they
don't tell us the value and let us. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. I'll be quiet.
Yeah.
Because it's like you don't even know how valuable it is until you skirt out the way and you be like, oh wait, you building what? You doing what?
I mean, it's like people in Africa didn't know how valuable their mines were, their diamond mines. And it's the same thing here in America, in our neighborhoods. People don't know how valuable, the assets and the real estate that their parents and grandparents own. You know, but other people outside of it, they know, and they coming in and taking it though. But even when they do that, back to the question, it's the fact that, I know how to work with my people though, man. I know how to communicate and I know how to treat my people with respect. And I also, it's a social. It's just not financial. It's also a social effect that we do when we run our business, our rental business. So I think that was bring me a lot of success. And then I like seeing people, because like I said, I came from that. I actually rented a property, and it was because of Section 8 I was able to have a roof over my head. So everybody is not abusing it. It's a lot of people that do, but everybody's not abusing it. Some people just need a step up or a help up. So, and we really talk to people when we're vetting our tenants. We really talk to them. We get to know their lifestyle, know their family, and know where they're at. And it helps a lot of people though. So I think just because of the social impact, along with the financial impact, Section 8 is my most favorable.
Wow. Because I was going to ask, like, what does your daughter feel like to grow up and see? You talk about she started there. Just
she don't remember. She was so young. She don't know. By the time she got of age to where she was remember, she's lived a spoiled life.
She done seen the glory, not the story.
Exactly.
Oh, I like that. That needs to be a shirt. He's good at coming up with shirt names. The glory, not the story. How we win. Wealth in the neighborhood. I love it. Okay.
Exactly.
So, obviously, even though we wish everybody was perfect, everybody's perfect when it comes to renting out to tenants and whatnot. And I'm sure you've seen the big thing with the woman in New York. So
wait, what happened with the woman in New York?
So long story short, a dude was squatting in her house professionally. Like, he knew the ways to work around the squatter law so he could legally stay there. And she came in there and changed the locks, which is illegal, and she got arrested.
Exactly. I was actually reading a story the other day here in Georgia. It was a man. He was 77 years old. Y'all see that story?
Nah, I didn't see that.
Where somebody did a fake deed. And they took his house, pulled out a loan, and then foreclosed on it. They had all of his, like, he'd been in this house all this, like, 20, 30 years of just belongings and everything. They had all this stuff put outside. 77 years old. He wouldn't get out. Old man, like, old 77. Don't you know they arrested him? Took him to jail. Took his house. Like, what type of recompense for, like, what,
Oh, my gosh.
I'm actually going through something like that right now, to where I'm actually buying 2 properties from an investor who I bought a lot of properties. So we was going to closing, and somebody made a deed. They made a fake deed, quick claim deed, filed it. Now we got to go to court to put the guys out. Like, and I was out of, like,
they get real sophisticated.
Yeah, they getting real old too.
But I'm gonna take your house and get a loan.
Yeah, get a loan. So now we got squatters, we got people stealing houses.
Wow.
And everything. So yeah, that's just kind of some of the things with real estate.
So yeah, to circle back to the question, like, how are you putting, like, safeguards, or what are you doing if a tenant does just say stop? I know you got Section 8, but, like, the non-Section 8 houses, if they do stop paying rent, or if they just violate and breaching your lease, how are you handling that removal?
I mean, honestly, and this is honestly though, like, whenever I had a person who could not, honestly, man, I got one tenant right now. This is like the first eviction that I have to go through. And it was a tenant that I inherited because I bought the property with the tenant in there.
That's pretty good if it's been 20 years and that's your first one.
Now, I had situations where I had evictions when I had a property manager. Once a property manager took over, that's the first time I started getting evictions and stuff like that. But like I said, it all goes back to the screening process. Once you know how to screen tenants, once you build that rapport, once you talk to them, like, you kind of know. Even when I had tenants who was unable to afford their rent or something happened, I would communicate with them. I give them a little leniency. After 30 days, 45 days, you're not on your feet, you can't pay rent. Let's start talking about you having to move out and me getting back possession of my house. And every time I come to them in a correct way, like, we always was able to work something out to where we could avoid the court system. Because like I said, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm still for my people. And, and once you know who you're dealing with at the beginning, like, and you know how to communicate with people, like, I've never had that problem. Now, the tenant I got right now, I'm having that problem. And that's because, like, she was already in the property. And right now, I just don't have that. I don't have the time and the focus to, like, communicate with people all the time now. So it's like, fuck, get the lawyer on her and get her up out of here.
Get the lawyer on her.
Yeah.
So, okay, I was like, you got all your questions out. I still want to ask my question. I'm making sure. Are you finished?
Go ahead.
Are you finished?
The Alchemist. Go on, talk about it.
Now, I read the Alchemist there 10 years ago, but let's go. Let me see what I can remember.
I love the Alchemist, because the Alchemist more than anything talks about the journey, which is why I started out talking about what was the neighborhood like when you grew up. And what are some of the things that you feel along the journey has prepared you for now, and who you had to become so that you can find the treasure that you now have?
Man, just like the Alchemist, his ups and his downs, how people got over on him, how they tricked him, how they bamboozled him. Like, all the hardships in life really is what prepared me to endure and go through, and I think persevere and continue to just be on the, on the pursuit of progression, right? So it's just like the things I really believe is like a lot of the things that I went through as a juvenile, all the hard times, all the hardships, and just made me a lot stronger.
It made you more relatable too, because now you can provide such a huge difference. Because I was going to ask, like, how did the impact go? Because I'm not going to lie, I didn't grow up as in the streets or in the community. But when I was in when I was in college, I did a documentary just as a journalist about gentrification in Atlanta. So that took us, not understanding then that Techwood Homes was one of the first projects in the country. And then the first projects that they started to take down were like Boat Rock and things like that. And so we were spending time there. But it didn't seem like we were trying to teach the game, and it didn't seem like the community was tied into the solution. So I'm very intrigued with how your tactics of reaching the community and giving solutions that they listen to, that work, and how do we take control back? Because it felt very much like you said, can't be booted out, we can't do anything about it. But how have you found ways to streamline and make progress, get them to listen, and transform communities?
Man, I believe, and what I'm experiencing is, especially in my urban core and my community, is it's like, what are people going to get out of it though? Like, what are they getting out of it? So once you learn how to tie an incentive to what you're offering, how is it going to benefit them? That's how it's going to open up their ears. So that's kind of what I do, and that's kind of how I kind of make that approach. And then you just, like you said, you got to be relatable too. So.
And then how can we get him to be relatable to The Alchemist? I'm trying to get him to love the book. What can you tell him what your feedback is on The Alchemist?
I listened to it. It didn't resonate with me. That's it. That's all. Maybe it's not my season, my time. Who knows? I listened to it. I was like, okay, it's cool. It is what it is.
It's been one of the most impactful books of my life. What were you
the most impactful? So what was the impact? What was the overall message that you got from it?
It was because I feel like I've been searching for a while. I too was young, hustling. I wanted to start working in 9th grade. So I too was looking for a treasure until I understood that is who you get to become that helps you to find the true treasure. Because as long as you keep thinking it's outside of you, then you'll miss it every time. And you'll be on a search that'll take you through a journey until you see that it was who you had to become to find it.
Wow,
that's been the journey of my life. I've been as an entrepreneur, and even before I was an entrepreneur, it's been, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get to the top. And at 22, I was working at the Nick Cannon Morning Show at CBS in New York. So I got to the top of media, and it was like, this is it. Okay, let me get in real estate. You get to the top, and I'm transacting hotel deals and doing commercial deals, and it's like, wait, that's it. And it's like, it's not about where you go and the destination. It's who you become and who those things stretch you to be.
Wow.
And that is why I love the book so much.
Impressive.
Hey, she just need to become an ambassador for the book. Like, well, get her a deal.
You know what? That actually is not a bad idea.
So, tips and tricks for the next person, with all the experience and everything you got into the present day, tips and tricks for the next coming entrepreneur trying to get into the real estate sector. What would you recommend them to do right now?
One thing I would recommend them to do is one thing that I didn't do was to get somebody to mentor you and to coach you instead of getting out here and trying to learn. I think I could have cut my success rate or my level of success, the time to reach that level of success, I could have cut that in half. I could have avoided a lot of mistakes, and I could have been way further in my career if I would have had a mentor, a coach, somebody kind of guided me through the processes instead of me getting out here and learning all these things on my own, making mistakes, fumbling, falling, taking these losses and everything.
But then that goes back to The Alchemist, though, because if you hadn't learned those mistakes, then you wouldn't be. I've seen that before.
Yeah, now that's me. Now I wouldn't advise that for everybody else though, because now, like I said, I came up a long time ago. So now we're in the day and the age of information. Like information is readily out there. Like the mentorship and the coaching is out there, and you can, instead of learning by doing, you can learn beforehand. And then you could do it. That'll just cut your rate down. That I think that'll be a lot more helpful and beneficial, because at the end of the day, it's all about getting the right answers on the test. So it's not how you get it, the answers on the test, I believe.
It's like an open book test.
Yeah, you can have an open book test. That's how I got my GC license. It was open book too. I didn't tell y'all that. It's that easy. But you can make it hard. You can make life hard and difficult.
It's funny? You're so right. I thought it was like, you got to do this unsurmountable amount of hours. You got to memorize all this stuff for a test, and then you got 90 minutes to complete the test, and after 90 minutes, without actually looking up the actual process.
Yep.
Well, I was like,
But how many times do people count themselves out of doing something because they feel like it's so hard and they don't know the steps? That's why exposure is key. Because this interview, I feel like for anybody, because I actually want to introduce you to somebody who's looking to get their GC license. But if anybody is interested, is like understanding, and that's why it's so important, like you said, to see a mentor, coach, or somebody who's been there, because you're just like, it's not. I get in your head you're making it that hard, and that's why you're not making a move. But when you go to actually do it, you're like, it's open book. Like you thinking, oh my gosh, I can't memorize information, so I can't do it. And it's like, all you had to do was go take it.
And another thing is, instead of listening to other people, you know, because a lot of times, you know, we came up in a day and age where people going to guide you wrong because the information that they knew, they was thinking with that certain mindset to where they want to keep everything to themselves. So they're going to tell you it's harder to get, are you going to do this, you're going to do that. So instead of always listening to what other people say as well, go out and look for yourself. Like, all right, listen to what they say, or hear what they say, but fact check it, do it yourself. You hear me? So that's another thing to look into. Always look into things yourself.
Trust but verify.
Yeah, verify. Don't trust. But
What ways can the community count on you?
how can they count on me? They can count on me as far as being like giving them the exposure. Like everything I've experienced, I'm an open book. You know, like whatever questions, whatever guidance, whatever direction, that's how they can count on me. Like giving the information, because it's the information that changed my life. You know what I'm saying? So to me, that's the most valuable thing that you can give a person.
Wow. And how can people find you?
Neighborhood Sal, all handles, whether it's social, whether it's Instagram, whether it's TikTok, whether it's YouTube, Neighborhood Sal.
Neighborhood Sal. Do you have any final words or anything that you want to leave and encourage and move forward the next person?
Final words. So basically, I'm going to just say, you know, have dreams, you know, dream big, write those dreams down and pursue them, you know, and believe in them. And, you know, sooner or later, keep going, you're going to accomplish them, man.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of All Things Entrepreneur. I've been your host, Jessica Myers.
It's been your boy, Errol J, and with our lovely guest,
Neighborhood Sal.
Be sure to subscribe and like below if you want to stay tuned for more. You know you got it. Let's get it. Let's go.